Imagine finding out that that goofy memory you have from when you were like 10 years old.
Yeah.
The one where, characters shot mustard out of plastic guns and built these massive tree houses out of like discarded washing machines.
Right. Classic Saturday morning cartoon stuff.
Exactly. But imagine finding out that it was actually this meticulously serialized apocalyptic thriller about, and I'm not kidding here, breaking the cycle of severe generational trauma.
It is wild when you actually look back at it.
It really is. I mean, you go in expecting a quick hit of nostalgia, right? Maybe a laugh at some oversized slapstick comedy.
Sure.
And instead, you find yourself staring down a literal masterclass in psychological horror. So honestly, like discovering your favorite childhood bouncy castle was actually architected by Stephen King.
That's such a perfect way to put it, because it completely shatters your retroactive perception of the media you consumed as a kid.
Totally.
You assume you've grasped the entirety of the universe because the surface level is so, like, hyperkinetic and colorful.
Right, it's just kids having fun.
Exactly. But when you actually dissect the architecture underneath, you realize you're being handed a profoundly complex Trojan horse.
That is exactly what we are unpacking today. We are diving into a brilliantly detailed retrospective put together by the YouTube creator Shady Blaze.
Fantastic analysis.
It really is. And the focus of this deep dive is the mid-2000s TV movie Codename Kids Next Door Operation Zero.
Oh man, what a movie.
Right. So the mission for you listening today is this. If you've ever dealt with a difficult family dynamic, or if you've ever wondered how media sneaks these massive, heavy themes right past network executives, you are going to want to stick around for this.
Absolutely.
Because this movie took a universe built entirely on kids using 2x4s to fight adults who, wanted them to eat their vegetables or whatever.
Yeah, the classic kids versus adults trope.
Right, but it transformed it. It secretly constructed this incredibly intricate lore system and delivered a genuinely moving allegory about what it actually takes to stop the cycle of abuse.
To really understand the magnitude of this pivot, we need to look at the mechanical foundation of the universe first.
Okay, lay it out.
So the premise of this series was traditionally very episodic. It was about neighborhood skirmishes,
Right, like a kid fights a dentist with a gadget made from a modified blender and some duct tape.
Exactly. It was localized, low stakes.
Yeah.
But Operation Zero elevates those localized skirmishes into an apocalyptic battle against an ancient, reality-warping evil.
Which is quite the leap.
It's huge. It completely recontextualizes the gadgets, the tree houses, and even the ridiculous villains, framing them against a backdrop of historical systemic oppression.
But wait, hold on a second.
Yeah.
Before we even get into the ancient evils and the reality warping stuff, I want to talk about the sheer logistical miracle that this movie even exists in the format.
Oh, the network side of things.
Yes, because if we look at the mid-2000s animation lands, the very idea of building intricate lore was basically considered corporate sabotage, wasn't it?
Absolutely it was. The broadcasting ecosystem at that time was, frankly, entirely hostile to the kind of story Operation Zero wanted to tell.
Like, they hated it.
Despised. Networks were in this phase of producing massive feature-length TV movies for almost every successful intellectual property they own. You saw it everywhere.
Right, like Jimmy Neutron had Win, Lose, and Kaboom.
Exactly. And Danny Phantom released Rainstorm.
Oh man, I remember that one.
Even properties like My Life as a Teenage Robot or Chalk Zone were getting the cinematic treatment.
Wow, yeah, I completely forgot about Chalk Zone.
Right. The strategy was to create these appointment viewing events, mostly just to spike advertising rates for a single weekend.
Right, block off a Friday night, sell a mountain of ad space for action figures, and just reap the rewards.
Yep.
But there was a massive hatch to how these networks wanted those movies to function, right?
There was.
Like, they wanted the spectacle, but they passionately hated the idea of serialization.
They were terrified of it.
Which is so funny to think about now, because today, literally everything we watch is serialized. So why were they so terrified of a continuous storyline back then?
It really comes down to the financial engine of cable television in that era, which was syndication.
Ah, reruns.
Exactly. The entire business model relied on reruns.
Yeah.
A network needed to be able to air, say, episode 4 at 3:00 p.m.
Okay.
Followed by episode 40 at 3:30 p.m., and then maybe episode 12 the next morning.
Right, just total random order.
Right, and they needed to do that without the viewer ever feeling lost or confused. If a kid came home from school, turned on the TV, and felt like they had missed critical information from the day before,
they'd just change the channel.
Exactly. The data show they would immediately change the channel to a competing network like Nickelodeon or Disney.
Ah, the dreaded reset button.
The reset button was law.
You can blow up the moon at 3.15, but by 3.28, the moon better be back in the sky, so tomorrow's episode...
Precisely. Serialization, where a narrative builds continuously and actions actually have permanent consequences, that was viewed as a massive financial liability.
Right.
Networks heavily push back against shows that tried it. I mean, look at the friction the creators of Avatar, The Last Airbender, faced early on for insisting on a serialized journey.
Oh, wow. They had to fight for that.
Oh, constantly. The only shows that got a pass were explicit comic book adaptations like Teen Titan or Ben 10.
Because serialized continuity was already baked into the DNA of the comic book genre.
Exactly. But for a primarily comedy-driven, episodic property like Kids Next Door, attempting to weave a serialized mythology was a massive, potentially show-killing risk.
And they didn't just attempt it, right? They actively smuggled it onto the airwaves right under the executive's nose.
They really did.
This is actually one of my favorite details from the source retrospective. The creators knew they couldn't just drop an apocalyptic lore bomb out of nowhere.
Right, the network would have noticed.
Exactly. So they used the standard episode airing directly before the movie to secretly lay all the groundwork.
It was such a smart move.
Our main character, number one, the bald kid with the sunglasses.
Right.
He goes on this wild, dramatic chase, and he's trying to recover this sealed book that supposedly contains the ancient secrets of the organization.
Dating back to the dawn of time.
Yes, discovered by this mythical founder known only as Numbuh Zero.
And they build incredible tension around this artifact. They establish the mythology of a legendary founder and a foundational text. And then brilliantly, they just pull the rug out from under the audience to appease the network format.
Yes, I remember this. The climax of the episode reveals the book is a total fake-out.
Yep.
It's just a children's Rainbow Monkey picture book that he desperately needed to return to the library to avoid a massive leak.
Classic reset button.
The tension just dissolves, the kids go out for a round of root beer at a pub, and the episode ends on a standard punch.
Right. The network executives are happy because, to them, it's just another episodic comedy.
But the creators were playing 4D chess.
Exactly. Because the psychological seed has already been planted in the viewer's mind.
Right.
The mechanics of serialization rely on rewarding the dedicated viewer. By establishing the concept of Numbuh Zero and this ancient book of KND just days before the movie premiered, the creators primed their audience.
They sent a signal.
They signal to the kids paying close attention. We are introducing concepts larger than a 22-minute runtime.
Wow.
It creates a specific cognitive anticipation. When the movies start, the viewer is already unconsciously looking for the payoff to that mythology, which immediately raises the stakes.
And man, the movie does not make you wait long for that payoff.
Not at all.
Because, I mean, if you're going to risk alienating your network with a serialized story, your opening better hook the viewer.
Absolutely.
And Operation Zero does that by completely abandoning its colorful, energetic palette.
The visual shift is jarring.
It really is. You tune in expecting wacky treehouse hijinks, and instead, you are thrust into this dreary, suffocating, smog-filled flashback.
Right.
The sky is gray, the architecture looks like Victorian London, and the world is ruled by a single, terrifying adult named Grandfather.
Just a completely bleak setting.
Yeah, and his entire regime is based on enslaving children, forcing them to work in these horrific gear-grinding factories.
Yep.
And what is this massive industrial complex manufacturing? Tapioca pudding.
It is a profoundly striking juxtaposition. The visual language of the Industrial Revolution paired with a mundane dessert.
Okay, I have to push back on this for a second.
Go ahead.
Tapioca. Isn't that just a punchline? Like, you have this incredibly grim atmospheric setup, kids in rags doing hard labor, and then you undercut it with tapioca pudding.
It seems like that, yeah.
It feels like a joke that breaks the tension to me.
It might seem like a punchline at first glance, but consider the mechanism of how this universe operates.
Yep.
The entire world is built on the exaggerated perceptions of childhood. To a child, tapioca pudding isn't just a dessert.
What is it?
It is the ultimate, incomprehensible symbol of old age. It represents everything mundane, flavorless, and forced upon them by the elderly.
Oh, wow. Okay.
What the creators do here is pure genius. They weaponize that mundane trait.
Right. They take the harmless caricature of old people food and they scale it up into an industrial nightmare.
Exactly. If Grandfather was mining coal or building weapons, it would be a standard, generic dystopia. By making it tapioca, it bridges the gap between kid logic and genuine dread. It strips away the show's usual layer of irony.
Because previously, the series would use kid-centric fears, like getting braces or going to summer camp, and exaggerate them for comedic effect.
Right, it was always played for laughs. But this factory scene isn't. It explicitly mirrors the real-world atrocities of Victorian child labor.
Jeez.
The relentless gear, the physical exhaustion, the complete exploitation of a vulnerable population for the profit of an unfeeling ruling class.
It's heavy stuff for a cartoon.
It is. And it establishes grandfather not as a cartoon villain who just wants to steal a shiny object, but as the embodiment of systemic, unadulterated exploitation.
It really sets an incredibly oppressive history that frames everything that follows.
It does.
And right in the middle of this Victorian tapioca nightmare, we zoom in on two specific kids.
Two brothers.
Right, Monty and Ben. They managed to escape the factory floor, but their reactions to the trauma couldn't be more different.
Very divergent path.
Ben is completely broken by grandfather's abuse. He is terrified, cowering in the shadows, convinced that resistance is impossible.
His learned helplessness personified.
Yeah, but Monty is different. Monty wanders off into the smog and miraculously discovers this massive, glowing, ancient tree hidden away.
Yep.
And inside this tree is advanced technology and the actual real Book of KND.
This is the genesis point for the entire technological infrastructure of the show's universe.
Right, and we should talk about how that technology actually works, because it's not just magic wands.
No, it's very specific.
It's 2x4 technology. It's this incredibly detailed engineering logic where kids take the detritus of the adult world like discarded engines, soup cans, old vacuum cleaners, literal planks of wood,
Right.
and they repurpose them into laser blasters and jet. It perfectly captures that specific childhood feeling where a pile of junk in the garage spaceship.
It's pure imagination weapon.
Exactly. And Monty finds the blueprints for this mine. He realizes he has the mechanical fight.
He finds the tools of liberation. But the psychological crux of the scene is what happens next.
Oh, brother.
Right. Monty doesn't just take the weapons and leave. He tries to empower Ben. He urges Ben to join him, to use this technology to overthrow their abuser.
But Ben...
He's too deeply traumatized.
Yeah.
The fear is so ingrained in him that he literally runs away from his own salvation.
So Monty is forced to step up alone. He grabs a makeshift weapon, declares to the sky that he'll show them what Zero, and officially becomes the legendary Numbuh Zero.
The myth begins.
He storms the factories, ushers in the seventh age of the organization, and completely overthrows grandfather.
It is classic Joseph Campbell-style myth-making, just inserted directly into a Saturday morning cartoon.
It really is the hero's journey.
And the retrospective highlights a wonderful little piece of timeline continuity that grounds this heavy lore back into the absurdity of the universe.
Oh, I loved this part.
Right. This legendary seventh age of peace and rebellion that Monty started. It eventually collapsed later in the 19th century, not from a massive war, but over a bitter dispute regarding a cake recipe.
A cake recipe.
Yes, which resulted in all the operatives being frozen in ice cream.
See, that is the perfect tonal balance. It's bleak, it's mythological, but someone still gets frozen in ice cream over a cake dispute.
It tells you exactly what kind of universe you're operating in.
It does, but then the movie snaps us out of this grim historical prologue and throws us right into the present day.
The tone shifts again.
Right. We move from the terrifying systemic oppression of grandfather to the current roster of villains that the show has featured for years.
The usual stuff.
The present-day plot kicks off with this massive, highly coordinated assault by the entire Rogues Gallery on the moon base and the Earth-based museum.
Yeah.
But if you actually look at the background details of where this massive assault is being launched from, it changes everything.
It's so subtle, but so brilliant.
They aren't in a jagged mountain fortress or a volcano lair. They are gathered at a generic, carpeted...
It is a literal villain convention, complete with lanyards and folding chairs.
Yes, and the source retrospective points out that this isn't an isolated incident.
No, it's a pattern.
If you look at the wider context of the series, these villains are constantly hanging out in the most mundane social settings. They have their own award shows.
They go on bowling league nights together.
They host annual summer barbecue cookouts. They meet up to watch movies.
Which completely reframes the nature of the antagonism in the present day.
It totally does. The retrospective offers this incredible theory that I can't stop thinking about it.
What is it?
What if these present-day villains aren't actually some grand, unified, evil syndicate bent on world domination?
Right.
What if they are just a group of incredibly lonely, friendless adults collectively going through a midlife crisis?
Oh, it is a remarkably sharp critique of adult social isolation.
Right.
Think about the mechanics of adult life. It can be incredibly difficult to make friends or find a sense of community once you are out of structured environments like school or university.
That is so true.
These villains are individuals who have a massive void in their lives. They desperately crave a sense of belonging.
So instead of joining like a softball league or a book club, they unify under the pettiest, most bizarre shared hobby imaginable, harboring a burning resentment for children.
It's tragic in a way.
Like they're LARPing their own anger issues.
Exactly.
They put on these ridiculous costumes. One guy dresses up as a giant pair of braces. Another guy has a toilet for a head.
Right.
And they attack tree houses just to feel like they are part of an in-group.
It is a profound observation about echo chamber. When individuals feel disconnected or irrelevant, they often find community through a shared negative fixation.
That's a great point.
Instead of confronting their own loneliness or finding healthy, constructive outlets like volunteering, they adopt these exaggerated personas.
And misdirect all that unresolved energy into fighting kids.
Exactly. It gives them a schedule, a social circle, and a false sense of purpose. It makes the modern villains seem far less like actual systemic threats.
And much more like pathetic, marginalized figures desperately trying to feel relevant in a world that has moved on without them.
Precisely.
That makes so much sense. It's why their plans always fail. They don't actually want to conquer the world. They just want an excuse to hang out at the bowling alley after to complain about how the kids...
The social club.
But amidst all these LARPing, midlife crisis villains, there is one guy in the room who is absolutely not playing. Yes, Father, a terrifying, shadowy silhouette of a man who is literally composed of fire.
He's on a completely different level.
While the rest of the convention is basically having a networking event and treating the assault as a fun group activity, Father uses the chaos as a tactical diversion.
Right, he has a specific goal.
He sneaks into the museum to steal a very specific, highly classified piece of technology, a recommissioning module.
Right.
And his ultimate goal is to use it to revive Grandfather.
This is the precise moment where the pathetic, community-seeking nature of the modern villain crashes headfirst into the genuine systemic evil we witnessed in the historical prologue.
It's a huge collision of tones.
It is. Father succeeds in using the module to revive Grandfather, but the outcome is instantaneous regret.
Because Grandfather is not a lonely adult looking for a barbecue buddy.
Oh, definitely not.
Oh man, Grandfather is a completely different species of villain. The visual design the animators went with for his revived form is pure nightmare fuel.
It really is.
He doesn't just look like an angry old man anymore. He has this eldritch, demonic aura.
Yes.
His robes look like writhing tentacles, his hands are these giant, gnarled claws, and his mouth is just a glowing yellow void filled with loose, jagged teeth.
It's a brilliant piece of character design. It conveys an immense reality-warping power without needing to clutter the screen with overly complex mechanical details.
The simplicity makes it scarier.
Exactly. The looseness of the teeth, the shifting silhouette, it makes him feel unstable, ancient, and deeply corrupted. He is the physical embodiment of archaic, absolute authority.
And he demonstrates that authority immediately. He doesn't scheme, he doesn't build a giant laser.
My monologues.
Right. He simply announces that he is completely done with the concept of youngsters. And he unleashes this massive, rippling wave of dark energy across the entire planet.
And instantly it warps reality.
It turns the entire global population, the kids, the adults, even the midlife crisis villains at the convention, into what the movie categorizes as senior citizen zombies.
Which is such a weird but effective concept.
It is. The visual execution of these zombies is a masterclass in blending grotesque humor with genuine unease. They don't look like traditional undead. They look quite literally like they are comprised entirely of soggy toilet paper.
Soggy toilet paper is such a visceral, gross description.
Right. And it perfectly captures that specific childhood disgust of decay and frailty. The animation style shifts here, too.
It gets much darker.
It stops feeling like an action comedy and starts playing out like a hopeless, high-stakes zombie apocalypse film.
You really feel the dread.
You have this massive, full CG space battle as the moon base is completely overwhelmed by the horde. It's incredibly cinematic.
And ruthless.
Yes! We have to watch beloved, competent main characters get backed into corners and infected.
Even the hamsters.
Even the organization's pet hamsters, which power the machinery, get turned into these horrifying, wrinkly zombie rodents. The pacing is brutal. Grandfather effectively conquers the entire planet, stripping away everyone's free will and drafting them into his new global tapioca factory in a matter of hours.
Which raises a crucial point about narrative structure and the mechanics of power scaling in animation.
Oh, how so?
If you analyze other famous cartoon villains of this era, your Skeletors, your Cobra Commanders, your Plankton,
right, the classics,
they almost always operate with a glaring vulnerability. They have a physical weakness, or more Commonly, they constantly fail due to their own arrogance.
Like capturing the hero and then monologuing for 20 minutes?
Exactly. They leave the protagonist suspended over a convoluted, easily escapable death trap while they go celebrate. Grandfather engages in absolutely none of those tropes.
He is terrifyingly hyper-efficient.
Hyper-efficient. He represents a completely different paradigm of threat. He isn't an individual with a quirky plan. He is an overwhelming force of nature.
He just gets things done.
He learns from his past defeat. He doesn't just assume control of the infrastructure. He instantly destroys the capacity for free will, eliminating any chance of grassroots rebellion.
Wow.
And perhaps most importantly, he doesn't rest once he has achieved global dominance.
Right. He goes straight to the next objective.
The very first tactical decision he makes after conquering the planet is to actively hunt down the Book of KND. He knows that the historical knowledge contained inside that book is the only mechanism that successfully defeated him in the past.
He's tying up loose ends immediately.
Exactly. He is not a villain who can be tricked by a clever disguise or a distraction. He is a closed-loop system of oppression.
So if you're the writers of this movie, you've backed yourself into a mass corner.
You really have.
How on earth do you defeat an unbeatable, hyper-efficient, reality-warping god who just turned the entire planet into soggy toilet paper zombies?
It's a tough writing problem.
The answer is that you don't look forward for a new weapon. You have to look back. You have to look at the twisted family tree that summoned him in the first place.
The lore bombs.
Yes, because to solve the present crisis, the movie decides to drop some of the biggest, most foundation-shaking lore bomb history of cartoon broadcasting.
It's incredibly ambitious.
Twists that completely rewire the mechanics of everything the audience thought they understood about these characters for the past 5 years.
The narrative architecture required to pull this off is incredibly dense, especially for a format that, as we discussed earlier, actively resisted continuity.
Let's walk through exactly how this unfolds, because it is a masterclass in organic discovery.
Okay.
Number 1, our main character is one of the very few who manages to escape the initial zombie.
Right.
He realizes physical combat is useless, so he pulls out a DNA tracker, specifically calibrated to find the genetic signature of the legendary Numbuh Zero.
Hoping to recommission him.
Exactly. He hopes he can find him, recommission him, and get him to fight Graham. Number 1 follows the tracking sig across the apocalypse land, expecting to find a hardened warrior in a hidden bunker.
That's what the audience expects too.
Right. Instead, the tracker leads him straight back to his own suburban neighborhood. It leads him through his own front door.
And it points directly at
his goofy, embarrassing, tuba-playing, sweater-wearing dad.
The revelation that Number One's father is Monty, the mythical founder of the Seventh Eight, is brilliant character work.
It blew my mind when I first saw it.
The juxtaposition of the mundane, seemingly oblivious father figure with the ultimate hyper-competent freedom fighter creates an incredible narrative friction.
It recontextualizes every interaction they've ever had on the show.
It really does.
Number 1 has spent 5 seasons trying to hide his secret agent life from his dad, thinking his dad is just a clueless adult, when in reality his dad literally invented the espionage tactics Number 1 is using.
It's dramatic irony at its finest.
But the genius of it is how logically it clicks into place. But wait. If Number 1's dad is Monty, and we know from the grim Victorian prologue that Monty had a cowardly brother named Ben,
Yep.
and we know that Ben grew up to become the fiery silhouette villain known as Father,
the genealogical math becomes unavoidable.
Exactly. That means Father, the ultimate terrifying antagonist of the series who has spent years actively trying to destroy Number 1 and his friend, is actually Bennett.
He is Number One's uncle.
Which means the reality-warping eldritch horror currently turning the planet into zombie grandfather is literally Number 1's biological.
This is where the thematic core of the movie solidifies.
It's all connected.
The central conflict of the entire franchise is instantly metamorphosed. It is no longer a macro-level war of kids versus adults or freedom versus authority.
What does it mean?
It is revealed to be a deeply personal, micro-level family feud that has tragically bled out and engulfed the entire globe.
It's Shakespearean.
It truly is.
But the movie isn't done yet. It saves the darkest, most deeply unsettling mechanical
Part is rough.
So Monty's memories are restored. He is recommissioned as Number Zero. He realizes the scale of the threat, and he knows he needs back. So he goes to confront his brother, Bennett. Monty asks Benedict for a truth, and specifically, He asks to borrow Benedict's perfect children, the delightful children down the lane.
For context, for those who might not remember, the Delightful Children are a recurring staple antagonist group in this series.
Yeah, describe them. They're so weird.
They are 5 children who are always dressed flawlessly, who speak in eerie, synchronized unison, and who act as perfectly compliant enforcers for Benedict's will.
Right. They are the absolute antithesis of the messy, rebellious heroes.
Exactly.
So Monty approaches these 5 creepy kids, pulls out a specialized restorative module, and blasts them with it.
I know.
And for a brief, fleeting moment, the synchronization breaks. Their posture changes, their voices separate, and we realize the horrifying...
The big reveal.
The delightful children from down the lane are actually the missing members of the original legendary team of Freedom Fight fought side by side with Mon overthrow grandfather
The psychological implications of this twist are genuinely staggering.
So dark.
And we really need to unpack the mechanics of what Benedict actually did to them.
Please do, because when I realized what this implied based on the retrospective, I literally felt sick to my stomach. This is supposed to be a cartoon.
The process Benedict subjected them to is referred to in-universe as delightfulization.
Right.
But clinically, it is a terrifyingly accurate metaphor for severe psychological abuse and the installation of learned helplessness.
Wow.
Benedict didn't just physically defeat his brother's closest ally. He captured them and systematically stripped away their individuality, their free will, and their capacity for rebellion.
He broke their psyches.
We broke their psyches until compliance was the only conceptual avenue for survival they had left.
He literally rewired their brains to make them perfectly obedient drones.
Yes.
And he permanently halted their aging.
Yes.
They are chronologically adults, but they are trapped forever in the physical and mental state of subjugated children.
Exactly. They represent the ultimate twisted fantasy of an authoritarian parent.
How do you mean?
Children who possess no independent voice, who generate no friction, who have no personal identity, and whose entire existence serves solely to reflect and validate the adult's desires.
Horror.
Benedict fundamentally erased the identities of his brother's found family and then paraded their hollowed-out shells around as his own Stepford children. It is a profound violation of autonomy and arguably one of the most disturbing, sophisticated concepts ever successfully broadcast in a piece of children's media.
It is pure calculated malice. He didn't just kill them, he stole their existence.
Exactly.
And this is why these wild overlapping plot twists matter. They aren't just there to make the audience gasp and point at the screen.
But they serve a thematic purpose.
They serve as the structural foundation for the most emotionally resonant theme of this entire deep dive.
Right.
Everything we've discussed, the serialization, the Victorian factories, the memory wiping, the brainwashing, it all funnels into one central ideological clash between 2 brothers, Benedict and Monty.
And specifically, how each brother chose to respond to the severe trauma of being raised by a monster like grandfather.
It functions as a textbook exploration of the cycle.
Let's look at Benedict's pathology. We learn from the prologue that Benedict was a terrified, deeply abused child.
He was broken early on.
He was so overwhelmed by grandfather's cruelty that he internalized the trauma. He subconsciously adopted the belief that the only way to survive in a hostile
The
world...
only way to start being a victim.
Right. And the only conceivable way to finally win his father's approval was to become a monster himself.
He perpetuated the cycle of hate.
He inflicted the pain he suffered onto the next generation.
And the most tragic, pathetic part of Benedict's entire arc, it doesn't even...
No, it doesn't.
All that suffering he caused was for nothing. Because when Benedict finally revives grandfather, expecting like a pat on the back or a good job, grandfather immediately turns on him and verbally abuses him. He calls Benedict pathetic. He explicitly states that he always preferred...
Because at least Monty had the spine to stand up and fight back.
Right. Benedict destroyed countless lives, brainwashed his brother's best friends, repeatedly tried to incinerate his own nephew, all for an ounce of validation from his abuser. And he is met with utter, humiliating rejection.
It is a devastating, highly realistic portrayal of how trauma can warp a victim's psychology,
Yeah.
turning them into a victimizer in a futile, desperate search for control and parental acceptance that will never actually manifest.
It's so sad. And then you have Monty.
Monty, conversely, represents the alternative, far more difficult path.
Right. Monty experienced the exact same abuse in the exact same horrific factory environment.
But he made a conscious choice to rebel.
He chose to weaponize his trauma into a shield to protect others, ensuring they wouldn't have to suffer what he did.
Which brings us to the actual climax of the film. And it's a phenomenal sequence that completely subverts cartoon physics.
Oh man, this part is epic. Number 1 is trying desperately to save his dad. He uses the gravity engines to literally dislodge the massive heavy metal KND KND moon base from orbit.
The animation goes into this dramatic, highly rendered slow motion.
The sheer scale is massive. He directs this giant, flaming, multi-ton space station to crash directly down onto Grandfather. It is the ultimate, definitive physical attack.
The screen flashes white, the dust slowly clears.
And Grandfather is standing in the crater, completely unscathed. He doesn't even have a scratch on him.
Yep.
Wait, I have to stop here. Why didn't that work?
What do you mean?
In literally every other episode of this show, if you drop a giant, heavy object on the bad guy gets squashed, the kids cheer, and the episode ends.
Sure.
Why did the writers suddenly turn off the physics of their own universe for this one specific scene?
Because the physics of the universe had to bow to the thematic weight of the narrative.
Ah, okay. Explain that.
If you allow a falling rock to defeat Grandfather, you ruin the metaphor. You cannot defeat deeply ingrained systemic generational trauma with mere physical force.
Right.
Dropping a moon base is a child solution to a complex emotional problem. It is the equivalent of trying to cure a systemic infection by punching the patient.
That's a great analogy.
Grandfather isn't just a physical enemy. He's the source of the family's psychological poison. He is the manifestation of the cycle of abuse.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. You can't punch your way out of inherited trauma.
Exactly.
So how does Monty actually beat him? Well, as you mentioned earlier, Grandfather has no physical weakness, but he does have a vulnerability.
His mind.
Yes, his power is rooted in his supreme authority and his memories of conquest. Monty realizes that the only mechanical way to neutralize the threat is to use the KND decommissioning mod.
Now, we should explain how decommissioning works because it's vital.
Right, go ahead.
Usually when an operative turns 13, their memories of the organization are wiped to prevent adult corruption.
Like a targeted amnesia?
Yes, it's a targeted neurological erasure of childhood wonder and specific operational data, leaving behind just the mundane memories of growing up.
So Monty takes this technology and forces it onto Grandfather, completely erasing his mem ruling the world.
Neutralizing his reality warping powers.
And reverting him back to just a harmless, used, ordinary old man who just wants some tapioca.
It is a brilliant tactical maneuver, but the emotional core of this resolution lies in the mechanical cost of the device.
The collateral.
Right. The decommissioning module doesn't discriminate. To erase his abuser's memory, Monty is caught in the blast rate. He has to erase his own memories as well.
It is the ultimate devastating sacrifice.
Exactly. But the true emotional gut punch, the moment that elevates this movie into the stratosphere, happens right after the dust settles.
Oh, man, this broke me.
Grandfather's neutral. Number one is desperate. He runs over to his father and frantically tries to use his recommissioning device to bring Monty back.
He wants his dad to be a hero with him.
Right. He wants to restore the legendary Numbuh Zero so they can team up, fight bad guys, and go on adventures together as father and son.
But the device malfunctions. It falls apart. Instead of a laser beam, it just projects a pre-recorded hologram of Monty.
And the hologram explains.
Oh, this is the part that completely got me. He didn't just get caught in the blast by accident.
No.
He intentionally sabotaged the recommissioning device beforehand so that his memories could never be restored.
He makes a conscious, irreversible choice to forget. He chooses to let the heroic, mythical legend of Numbuh Zero die permanently.
And the reasoning he provides in that hologram is profoundly moving.
What does he say?
He explains that he isn't a kid anymore, he is an adult, and more importantly, he is a parent. His most vital mission in life is no longer fighting monsters, saving the world, or living in the glory of his past.
His most important mission is simply being a present, loving father to his son.
He sacrifices his own legendary status, his own ego, and his own heroic identity to ensure that the cycle of neglect and abuse is broken.
Think about the contrast.
It's beautiful.
Benedict tried to become his abuser to win his love. Monty chose to entirely forget his abuser so he could actually focus on loving his son.
It is a masterful, deeply mature conclusion. We're talking about a universe built around 2x4s and mustard guns, and it perfectly sticks a landing about the quiet, unglamorous heroism of just being a decent present.
It is incredibly poignant. It respects the intelligence and emotional capacity of its audience, elevating the material far beyond its original episodic constraints.
Absolutely.
However, and this is a big however, as the retrospective by Shady Blaze Blizzard astutely points out, the execution of the movie is not entirely flawless.
Right. It wouldn't be a true deep dive if we didn't inspect the cracks in the foundation.
While it's incredibly ambitious and thematically rich, there are significant narrative and structural missteps that we have to address to get the full objective picture of this artifact.
Right. Let's get into the flaws. And the biggest, most glaring issue the source calls out is how the movie suddenly tries to awkwardly shoehorn in this very standard Saturday morning cartoon moral about teamwork.
Yes, it feels very out of place. Throughout the runtime of the film, various supporting characters repeatedly reprimand number one for being too reckless, for trying to shoulder the burden alone.
Right.
And they constantly insist that his character arc must revolve around learning to appreciate his team.
But the execution of that moral is completely baffling. It feels like two different scripts fighting each other.
How so?
The writers force this dialogue about friendship and teamwork, but the actual plot mechanics show number one operating as a lone wolf and doing an exceptionally good job of it.
That's true.
Early on, he correctly prioritizes saving the historical artifacts museum over defending the falling moonbase. He manages to survive the zombie apocalypse, track down his dad's DNA, and recommission the ultimate hero entirely by him.
He's highly competent.
And while his team helps distract a few zombies at the very end, he essentially defeats the grand reality-warping villain entirely on his own by making the call to drop them.
It creates a severe dissonance between the narrative text, what the dialogue is explicitly telling the audience, and the subtext, what the actions on screen are actually demonstrating.
Exactly.
Number one's mechanical arc simply does not match the thematic conclusion the movie clumsily attempts to slap onto the final act.
It's so jarring. The Source retrospective even jokes about how the movie ends with this grand sweeping shot of everyone gathering around to write "We Are Kids Next Door" in the legendary book.
Right.
But it feels completely unearned because number one did 90% of the heavy lifting while everyone else was either a zombie or complaining.
It's a bit forced. And unfortunately, that's not the only flaw. There is a massively disappointing narrative misfire regarding Father Benedict.
Oh, the blue ball moment, as the creator of the retrospective eloquently phrased it.
Yeah, that is exactly what it is.
The movie meticulously sets up this incredible, cathartic confrontation. Benedict has been abused higher life. He finally recommissions his brainwashed child soldiers back into sectors.
He physically stands side by side with his brother Monty for the first time in decades.
And he ignites into this massive pillar of fire, ready to unleash his lifetime of repressed wrath directly onto Grandfather.
The audience is primed for this epic Shakespearean clash. The abused, twisted son finally fighting back against the tyrannical father.
Then what happened?
Benedict just whimpers, drops his weapons, cowers in fear, and literally runs away off screen.
It is so frustrating.
It completely deflates a complex character arc that had been beautifully and painstakingly built up over the preceding hour.
Why do you think they did?
When analyzed, you have to critically examine the production realities of media, particularly animation aimed at younger demographics.
Okay.
Why does a writer's room build that tension only to abandon? Often, creators or network executives get cold feet.
They chicken out.
Exactly. They feel an institutional obligation to attach a standard, safe, kids show moral, like the importance of teamwork.
Even when the narrative they've organically developed is actually exploring something far more complex, dangerous, and uncomfortable.
Like confronting a lifelong abuser, or navigating the messy, unresolved reality of a deeply broken family.
Exactly. It's like the executives got scared of their own shadow. They allowed the writers to build this incredibly dark, nuanced narrative about generational trauma. But right at the finish line, they panicked and said, wait, this is getting too heavy. Let's make sure the bad guy stays cowardly and the good guys hold hands and talk about sharing.
They forced a safe convention when the story absolutely demanded subversion.
And look, on top of the thematic dissonance, there are, of course, the logistical plot holes that inevitably occur when you try to compress a massive, heavily serialized lore Bible into a strict 90-minute run.
The logistical inconsistencies are very noticeable if you scrutinize the timeline.
Oh, they are hilarious when you actually stop and think about
I'll give an example.
For instance, in the grim Victorian flashback, the massive glowing KND technology that Monty discovered is very clearly rooted deep underground in London.
Right. It's explicitly in London.
But in the present day, that exact same magical tree is somehow located directly underneath the foundation of number one's suburban house in America. How does that work?
It doesn't.
Did Monty uproot a massive, ancient, magical tech tree, put it on a boat, ship it across the Atlantic, and then build a split-level rancho?
The retrospective notes the chronological impossibility. The series previously established that number one's family only immigrated to America roughly 8 years prior to the events of the show.
Exactly.
The logistics of secretly transplanting the foundational artifact of the entire organization into a modern suburban development without anyone noticing are, frankly, nonsensical.
It's completely absurd. And my personal favorite logic gap happens during the climax.
Which one is that?
When Grandfather is at the convention center, unleashing his dark energy and turning everyone on Earth into soggy toilet paper zombies, number one is literally just standing on the stage 3 feet away from him.
Oh, right.
He is the highest-ranking enemy operative on the planet, standing right in plain sight. And Grandfather, this hyper-efficient, omnipotent, reality-warping god of evil, just completely ignores him for absolutely no reason. So number one can escape
It requires a significant suspension of disbelief to accept that the villain simply forgot to eliminate the primary threat standing in his peripheral vision.
See you there.
But, as the source concludes, and looking at the sum total of the narrative, I think we have to agree with the assessment.
What's that?
Despite these structural flaws, the forced morals, and the occasional logistical plot hole, the sheer audacious ambition of the lore completely carries the film.
The ambition outweighs the stumbles by a mile. It proves that if you are willing to look past the surface-level silly, past the duct tape gadget, the mustard-shooting blasters, and the giant treehouse idea, can serve as a profound Trojan horse.
It can sneak in incredibly complex, heavy allegories about the transition into adulthood, the systemic exploitation of youth, and the often invisible, crushing legacies of family trauma.
All while keeping you entertained.
It fundamentally respects the intelligence and emotional depth of its audience, trusting them to grasp the gravity of the subtext, even when the execution occasionally falters under network mandate.
Exactly. We started this deep dive talking about the feeling of opening an old toy box and finding something completely didn't. Operation Zero is the ultimate man.
It's a powerful reminder that the media we consume early in life often shapes our understanding of complex emotional concepts in ways we don't fully realize until we look back at it with adults.
We think we're just watching kids fight adults, but we're actually absorbing lessons about resilience and family.
And looking back at Monty's ultimate sack, the narrative leaves us with a rather profound and incredibly difficult philosophical question to consider regarding how we process those lessons.
I love a heavy thought to close. Lay it on.
To save the world, and more important, to definitively break the cycle of systemic abuse, Monty concluded that he had to completely erase his abuser's memory. But crucially, he had to erase his own as well.
Right.
He had to neurologically annihilate his own heroic past and the memory of his trauma to guarantee a safe, unburdened future for his son. It asks a lingering, uncomfortable question about how we heal in the real world.
Which
Is true lasting peace only found entirely severing ourselves from and forgetting our deepest trauma? Or is there a functional way to break the cycle of abuse while still holding on to the memories, however painful, of our past?
Man, that is a heavy thought to leave lingering in the toy, but that is exactly why we do this. Dig past the tapioca fine. Thanks for joining us on the dive, questioning what you watch, Trojan Horse.